The air was thick with dust as 14-year-old Malik darted through the tight alleys of Bobo Dioulasso, a crumpled newspaper clutched in his hand. The headlines screamed of political instability, yet it wasn't the bold letters or the president's solemn expression that frightened him. It was the scribbled message in red ink across the bottom of the page: "Midnight, Palace, the Cobra strikes from within." His breath caught in his throat. The paper had been tossed from a moving vehicle, fluttering down near the mosque steps where Malik often slept. He didn't know who the message was meant for, but one name inked in tiny script at the edge chilled his bones: Ibrahim Traoré, President of Burkina Faso. Malik had seen his face on countless posters, had even cheered with the crowd during his last public appearance. In the hearts of many poor orphans like him, Traoré was hope personified. But what if hope was being stalked in the dark? A few hours earlier, in the heavily guarded Koulaba presidential palace, President Ibrahim Traoré sat behind his massive mahogany desk, flanked by tall windows and the national flag. A storm raged outside, lightning dancing in the glass reflections. His advisors, Colonel Daira, Minister Kossi, and Chief of Staff Madame Bertha, stood in a semicircle, tension rising like the wind howling against the walls. "Mr. President, with all due respect," said Colonel Daira, brushing imaginary lint from his uniform, "the border disarmament plan is dangerous. You're exposing our flanks." "It's a plan for peace, Colonel," Traoré replied, his voice calm but ironclad. "We can't afford another civil flare-up. The people need stability." Minister Kossi gave a thin smile. "Or they need strength, not weakness disguised as diplomacy. The rebels don't play by the rules, sir. They smell blood and restraint." Madame Bertha crossed her arms, speaking for the first time. "You've been too trusting, Ibrahim. This humanitarian obsession, it's going to get you killed." The room fell silent. The words hung heavy. Traoré leaned forward. "You three have stood by me since the revolution, but remember this. I did not come to power through treachery. I won't govern through fear. That's what we fought against. You've grown soft." Daira muttered under his breath, but loud enough to be heard. Traoré's gaze sharpened. "What did you say, Colonel?" Daira straightened. "Only that caution is not weakness, sir." Outside the palace gates, lightning cracked again, and Malik was already on his way. The boy barely made it through the palace's outer perimeter. His ragged clothes and soot-streaked face helped him blend into the laborers working nearby. But inside, the corridors were another world, sterile, white, and full of cameras. He ducked under maintenance carts, slipped behind marble pillars, and finally found himself facing the main hallway leading to the president's chambers. Two guards stood ahead. Malik crouched, clutching the newspaper. "What if they shoot me?" he thought. "What if no one believes a street orphan?" But then he heard a voice he'd heard a dozen times through radio and public addresses. "No, postpone the meeting with the Mali envoy. I'll address Parliament myself." It was Traoré. Malik's legs moved on their own. He burst from behind the pillar and ran straight toward the man now approaching from the opposite corridor. The guards raised their rifles, but Malik shouted first. "Mr. President, they're going to kill you tonight. Your people. They're lying to you." The world seemed to freeze. The president held up a hand, stopping the guards. Malik dropped to his knees, thrusting the newspaper toward him. Traoré slowly took it, reading the scribbled red ink. His eyes narrowed. "Where did you get this?" It flew out of a car window near the mosque, sir. I sleep there sometimes. I saw your name. I thought I had to tell you." Traoré turned to one of the guards. "Take him to the Red Wing holding chamber, gently." "But I'm not lying," Malik cried. "I believe you," Traoré said softly, locking eyes with him. "That's why I'm not letting anyone else get to you first." In a dim office far from the presidential wing, Daira closed his phone and turned to Bertha. "He knows something. That boy wasn't random." Bertha's lips thinned. "Then we adjust the plan. Tonight is still on, but now we add a variable." Kossi lit a cigar, exhaling slowly, "and the variable dies before he speaks again, along with our dear president." Bertha whispered. "Are we all agreed?" Daira asked. The room fell into dark silence, then three heads nodded. Later that night, the palace was unusually quiet. The official explanation was security maintenance, no aides. No press, just the core group of ministers, and a president now pacing in his office with the paper still in his hand. He picked up the phone. "Captain Sogo." "Yes, Mr. President." "Bring me the boy now." Malik was brought in under guard. He looked terrified. Traoré waved the guards away and pulled a chair. "Sit." Malik obeyed. "I want you to tell me exactly what you saw. Word for word. No fear. No lying." Malik took a breath. "The car was black, government plates. The window was tinted, but I saw a gloved hand toss the paper. I read the message. I saw your name. I knew it was meant for you. There was something else too. The crest it was on the envelope that flew out after." "What crest?" "Military, like the one Colonel Daira wears." A silence spread like a slow, moving fire. Traoré nodded. "Thank you." Then he picked up the secure red line phone. "Activate Protocol 0, quietly. Tell General Soor I need him." "Yes, sir." Malik frowned. "What's Protocol 0? "It means," Traoré said grimly, "that I finally trust someone who has nothing to gain from me, an orphan boy, and that's the most dangerous kind of truth." Outside, the storm had stilled. But inside, the real tempest had only begun. The dead of night settled over Ouagadougou like a velvet shroud, but inside the palace, shadows moved with purpose. President Ibrahim Traoré stood at the edge of his office balcony, gazing into the city's dark horizon. He wasn't watching for assassins, he was watching for clarity. The boy's warning had cracked something in him, the armor of loyalty he had built over years. Now, every silence from Daira, every sideways glance from Bertha, every perfect gesture from Kossi, it all reeked of conspiracy. Behind him, Malik sat on the floor in the corner, fidgeting with the frayed edge of his shirt. "You should sleep," the president said. Malik looked up. "I can't. What if they come?" "They will," Traoré answered without turning. "But not for you first. They'll come for me. The trick is making them believe they've already won." At that moment, the hidden panel behind the presidential bookshelf slid open, a feature known only to a handful of senior officers. General Soor stepped out, his face unreadable. Dressed in civilian clothes, but carrying the unmistakable aura of command, he nodded once. "Protocol 0 is active. I've dispatched a covert unit to monitor Daira, Bertha, and Kossi. Nothing overt. We need more than suspicion. We need proof." Traoré finally turned. "You'll have it tonight. They're planning to strike before dawn." Soor's brow furrowed. "Do we evacuate you?" "No," Traoré said, stepping back into the room. "I want to face them, but I want them to think they've won before they even draw their weapons." He looked at Malik. "And I want him in the control room, protected." Malik's eyes widened. "But I'm just a no," Soor interrupted, assessing the boy. "You're a variable, and variables break patterns. We need you." Meanwhile, in a sealed conference room 3 floors below, Daira poured a drink with the calm of a man choosing his last words carefully. "Kossi, you have your man on the inside?" he asked without looking up. "Yes," the Minister of Defense replied. "Captain Danu is ready. He's scheduled to lead the midnight shift switch. Once that happens, we own the eastern hallways." "And Bertha?" Daira asked. Madame Bertha was staring at the ceiling. "Traoré's phone has a tracking bug. He hasn't left the palace. He's preparing for something. Maybe an evacuation." Kossi grunted. "Coward." "No," Bertha corrected, her voice cold. "He's baiting us." Daira's jaw clenched. "Then we accelerate. 2 teams, one takes the president, the other secures the command center. Eliminate anyone outside the planning, including that street rat." Bertha smiled faintly, agreed. They all raised their glasses. To the new dawn, in the palace control room, Malik sat at the edge of his seat. Dozens of monitors flickered with camera feeds, heartbeat indicators, and surveillance data. The room smelled like cold air and tension. General Soor stood with arms crossed beside him, watching the feeds silently. Malik pointed. "That's the hallway where I saw the men talking earlier." Soor leaned forward. "Timestamp that." The technician at the console zoomed in. Voice pattern analytics initiated. Another screen lit up with red text. Confirmed. Daira, Kossi, intent to initiate internal coup. Weapons authorized. 0 loyalty protocol breached. Soor's face darkened. "That's all we need." But just then, an alarm flashed. A coded entry override was initiated at the eastern gate. Unauthorized, fast, moving. Soor barked orders. Seal the east wing. Lock down all elevator access. Get Traoré to safe hall 1. Malik grabbed the mic. "No," He said not to evacuate him. He said they had to believe they already won. Soar stared at him, eyes narrowing. Damn it. He turned to the console. Divert all lights in the East Wing, make it seem like power failure, feed fake heat signatures to their trackers, and get me a 2-man tactical unit at the South Gallery. Now, Malik's voice trembled. Do they know we're watching? Not yet, Soar muttered, but soon. Traoré sat alone in his darkened office, one lamp flickering beside him. The newspaper lay open again on the desk. The scribbled words felt prophetic now. He knew Daira's mind, knew how Bertha calculated. He'd let them build the sandcastle of betrayal, and now he would wait for the tide. A knock came. Slow, deliberate. Enter, he said calmly. Colonel Daira stepped in, flanked by Captain Danu and 2 armed guards. Behind them, Bertha and Kasi. Daira saluted. Apologies for the late disturbance, sir. Urgent security concern. Traoré nodded. Come in. As they stepped forward, Bertha's eyes scanned the shadows. You're alone. I am, Traoré replied. A man should face judgment without hiding behind anyone. Good, Kasi said, drawing a pistol. But before the first shot rang out, the room exploded into a blur of motion. Lights surged, windows sealed shut, and 2 hidden panels opened to reveal General Soar's tactical men, rifles aimed and ready. Drop your weapons. Soar thundered. Daira fired once, missing. Soar didn't. He shot Danu in the thigh. The man crumpled. Bertha lunged toward the desk, but Malik's voice echoed through the comm system. She's going for the override key under the globe. Too late. Soar's men grabbed her. Traoré stood without flinching. You were family, and you chose fear over hope. Bertha spat. Hope doesn't win wars. No, Traoré agreed, but truth survives them. He walked up to Daira, who was now on his knees. Why? He asked simply. Daira didn't answer. Then a faint voice crackled from Danu's radio. All units report. Target 1 neutralized. Malik grabbed the control room mic. Negative. Target is still alive. And watching. He switched on the speaker feed into the palace. Then calmly, Traoré leaned into Daira's ear. Tell them, or I will. 10 minutes later, the loyalist forces swarmed the palace, rounding up all rogue operatives. The command room was lit up like daylight. Malik sat beside Soar, watching it all unfold with tired, wide eyes. You saved him, Soar said quietly. I just told the truth, Malik replied. That's more than most ever do. Then the control room door opened. Traoré stepped inside. He walked directly to Malik and knelt. You have no rank, no family, no money, but tonight you are my shield. Malik looked away, embarrassed. I just didn't want you to die, Traoré smiled. Then I want you to live for something bigger than alleys and hunger. He placed a small velvet box on the desk. Inside was a badge, Presidential Civilian Honor, First Class. You've earned this. Malik stared at it. Does this mean I work for you now? He asked. Traoré looked him in the eye. No, it means I work for you now, for all the Maliks I never saw. The room fell quiet, but far away, in a bunker untouched by the night's events, a screen flickered. A shadowy figure watched the footage and whispered, then let the real game begin. The days that followed the failed coup unfolded like an uneasy sunrise, warmth returning but shadows lingering. The palace had been purged of traitors, but not of paranoia. Burkina Faso's streets buzzed with a mixture of joy and unease. President Ibrahim Traoré had survived, thanks to the unlikeliest of heroes, the boy with no shoes, the orphan named Malik. But the scent of gunpowder still lingered, and the silence of one conspirator continued to echo louder than any gunfire. Colonel Daira had taken his secrets to the grave. Despite surveillance, interrogations, and data sweeps, no one could identify the source of the radio transmission that had triggered Danu's hand. Target 1 neutralized. Was a ghost call untraceable, deliberate, and deeply calculated? Traoré stood before the mirror in his private chamber, tying the ceremonial sash for the National Reconciliation Summit. Yet his mind was 1,000 miles away, chasing phantoms through corridors of betrayal. Malik, now fitted in a crisp blue uniform, stood silently behind him. You don't trust the quiet anymore, Malik finally said. Traoré smiled faintly. The quiet is where the next bullet waits. He turned, adjusted Malik's collar like a father would a son's, then sighed. Today, we speak of unity. Tomorrow, we prepare for war. The summit was grand. Heads of state, tribal chiefs, opposition leaders, and international observers filled the marble atrium of the Grand Palais. The walls shimmered with gold emblems and guards lined every corridor. As Traoré took the podium, his voice rang with conviction. We must not confuse disagreement with disloyalty, nor dissent with destruction, but we must never again allow trust to be used as a weapon. The crowd erupted in applause, yet behind the scenes the air was stifling. General Soor stood in the balcony gallery, scanning the crowd through digital binoculars. He paused, then froze. Malik. Soor whispered into his comms. Row D, left side, third from the end, recognized that face. Malik turned to a monitor feed. His blood ran cold. It's her. They had seen her once, briefly, during the palace interrogation of Kasi. She was never named, never logged. But her presence had sent Kasi into a fit of silent, trembling refusal. And now, here she was, wearing diplomat attire, calm and poised like a spectator. Soor tapped his earpiece. Unit 3, move quietly. I want that woman in a secured interview room within the hour. But the woman, sensing the shift, rose from her seat. She walked calmly down the side aisle and vanished through a staff, only exit before Unit 3 could intercept her. Malik slammed his fist on the table. She knew. Traoré, still speaking, saw the flicker of panic on Soor's face. He adjusted mid-sentence. And unity, he continued, is not the absence of conflict, but the courage to face it without fear. Later that night, the Palace Security Command reported a full breach. No alarms triggered. The hidden vault containing archived coup data had been accessed, a single file deleted, no cameras, no prints. In the courtyard, Traoré walked with Malik, their conversation tight and coded. She's not working alone, Malik said. She never was, Traoré answered. The question is, who still walks among us? They sat on the edge of the old stone fountain. The moon reflected in the water like a second truth trying to reveal itself. I think there's another traitor, Malik whispered. Traoré didn't respond. Instead, he dropped a stone into the fountain. Ripples distorted the moon, we all think, he said finally, but now we prove. The following morning, a private cabinet session convened. Traoré sat at the head of the long mahogany table, his generals and ministers to his left and right, among them General Soor, but also a new face, Deputy Security Minister Ngoma, recently promoted after the purge. I want to discuss the breach, Traoré began. Someone walked through our palace like it was their home, unseen, untouched. Soor spoke first. We've narrowed it down. The only people with uninterrupted clearance logs during that hour were myself and Ngoma. All eyes turned. Ngoma didn't flinch. That is false. My ID card was used, but I was asleep during that hour. Check the biometric logs. A technician in the back ran the verification. Confirmed. He said, card used. Biometrics do not match. Ngoma leaned forward. Someone cloned my credentials. Traoré nodded, which means they had internal access, deep internal. Then he turned to Malik, who had been standing in the shadows of the room. You found something. Malik stepped forward, holding up a small device, no larger than a pen cap. A nanosignal duplicator. Found it embedded in the corner of the biometric pad, invisible to the naked eye. Traoré raised an eyebrow. And how did you find it? Malik looked down. Because I used to steal food from biometric vending stations. I know the trick. They always hide near the edges. There was silence. Then Soor spoke. So who planted it? Malik looked around the room and then, softly, I think it was someone in this room. Just as the words dropped, the palace lights surged and died. Total blackout, screams echoed in the corridors, emergency shutters sealed the exits, gas canisters popped in the distance, distraction smokes, General Soor barked orders, defense formation Charlie, lock the president down. Malik grabbed Traoré and pulled him toward the emergency tunnel. But halfway through, they were intercepted. 3 masked soldiers, weapons drawn. The leader pulled off her mask. The woman from the summit. Mr. President, she said, voice smooth like silk on steel. We meet at last. Traoré stepped forward. "You're the voice behind the radio." "No," she smiled. "I'm the hand behind the voice." Malik stepped in front of Traoré. "You're not taking him." She looked at the boy. "You really believe you're the reason he's still alive?" He said nothing. She continued, stepping closer. "You've been manipulated too. He's using you, like he used your father." Malik blinked. "My father? Ask him," she whispered, and vanished into the shadows, just as reinforcements stormed the hall, forcing the masked soldiers to scatter. An hour later, in the bunker, Malik sat opposite Traoré. "You knew my father?" he asked quietly. Traoré looked away. "He was a soldier, one of mine. We lost him during Operation Dustfall." Malik clenched his fists. "And you never told me." Traoré looked at him. "Would it have changed your purpose?" "Yes," Malik yelled. Traoré stood. "Then I protected you from that." Malik shook his head. "Or you controlled me, just like them." Traoré's face darkened. "I am not like them." But the boy didn't believe him. He walked out of the room. Traoré stopped him at the door. "Where are you going?" "To find the truth," Malik said, "even if I have to fight him to get it." He walked into the night, leaving behind the badge, the uniform, and the man who might have saved him or destroyed him. And somewhere, in another shadowed room, the woman watched through a hidden feed and whispered, "Now the pawn walks alone." Malik walked through the dust-choked alleys of Ouagadougou like a ghost returned to the world of the living. The orphanage he once called home lay abandoned, the windows broken, the walls scorched from the chaos of years gone by. He ran his fingers over the cracked wall where his name had once been carved. Malik, son of no one. But now everything had changed. The whispers of the woman from the summit haunted his mind, like he used your father. He needed answers, not just about his father, about everything. Traoré, the failed coup, the ghosts that still moved through the palace corridors wearing uniforms of loyalty. The line between savior and manipulator had grown too thin to see. He didn't return to the palace. He returned to the streets, the ones who sold secrets for coins, the ones who knew who was moving what, when, and why. And after a week of digging, bribing, and nearly dying in an ambush by masked mercenaries, he found her, or she found him. The woman from the summit emerged from a crowd at the back of a nightclub, dressed like an ordinary citizen. But her presence struck silence into the room. "You've been looking for me," she said. "I want the truth." Malik replied, "No more riddles, no more games." She tilted her head. "Your father was Major Camry Diallo, the man who led the failed uprising 6 years ago." Malik flinched. "Lies, is it?" She stepped closer. "Did you ever see a grave, a picture, even a rank?" "He died in Operation Dustfall," Malik said weakly. Dustfall was a cover operation. There was no battle. There was only betrayal. He believed in something bigger than Ibrahim Traoré's promises, and for that he died. Malik's voice cracked. "Traoré saved me because he saw you as leverage," she said. "You're not just a survivor, Malik. You're a legacy, and that scared him." He wanted to scream, but his rage collapsed into doubt. She handed him a chip. "Go to the Southern Archives, insert this into the console, and see what kind of man your hero really is." The Southern Archive was a forgotten facility near the old airbase, buried under layers of digital ice. Malik broke in with tools given to him by the woman's network. Inside, cobwebs clung to dusty screens. But the chip fit perfectly. The screen buzzed to life, showing surveillance footage from 6 years ago. A prison room, his father, Major Camry Diallo, tied to a chair, beaten, bleeding, and standing before him, President Ibrahim Traoré, not yet president then, still a colonel. Traoré spoke calmly in the footage. "You're a threat, Camry. Your loyalty to the people makes you dangerous. The council wants you silenced." Camry spat blood. "I fought for this country while you sat in strategy rooms sipping tea. You sold us out. You're too loud," Traoré said coldly. Then he stepped out of frame. Seconds later, the room filled with gas. Malik fell to his knees. His body trembled. His breath became ragged. The man he had risked his life for had murdered his father. Malik returned to the palace at dawn, not as a hero, not as a pawn, but as a weapon. The gates didn't open for him. He climbed through a ventilation shaft he once used to steal fruit from the kitchens as a child. Inside, everything felt colder. The guards nodded at him. The staff whispered. When he reached the presidential quarters, he found Traoré alone, sharpening a ceremonial dagger. He looked up, almost expecting him. "You saw the footage," Traoré said, emotionless. Malik stepped forward. "Why?" Traoré set the blade down. "Because he chose ideology over order. He would have set fire to this country to prove a point. You killed him. I made a decision to protect the state." Malik's voice trembled. "I trusted you." Traoré stood. "I never asked for your trust, Malik. I earned your respect, and that's more dangerous, because now you must choose." Malik stared at the man who raised him, protected him, molded him, and broke him. "I won't kill you," Malik whispered, "but I'll never serve you again." He dropped a flash drive on the table. "Inside are copies of the footage. The press will have it by midnight." Traoré didn't flinch. "So you'd burn the palace just like your father?" Malik turned to the door. "No, I'll light the torch and walk away. It's up to you whether you put it out or let it spread." He walked out, and behind him the silence of a man who had ruled by secrets, now surrounded by truth. As night fell, television screens across the nation lit up with footage of Major Camry Diallo's death. Chaos erupted, protests swelled, ministers resigned. In the final scene, President Ibrahim Traoré stood alone on the palace balcony, the dagger still in his hand. And in the distance, among the crowd, a boy with no name watched silently from the shadows. A poor orphan, the one who had saved him, now the one who would bring him down.